Let's talk about ICD-10. And as I started, I told you, this is not going to be a billing issue. This is a documentation issue. And your crews are going to need to know about this, so take advantage. When you have an active association like this, it is a gift to providers in the state. Not every state has an active association like this. This is a great opportunity for you. Go back and take advantage of this that they're going to put up for you. Have your crews look at it. Watch pieces of it again yourself. If there's something that's talked about and you have a question about it. But you're going to need to be documenting to a high level, because remember, I told you, those codes have been around since the 70s. Has music changed a little bit? Do you remember how you thought you were all that in a bag of chips when you had a Walkman? You thought you were so cool listening to Saturday Night Fever there, Staying Alive in the Bee Gees, which I still like. But we kind of changed a little bit, haven't we? And what we can listen to and how we can listen to it. As we go, 68,000 codes, a lot broader than 13,000. 12 is greater than 4. A claim form used to have 4 spots on it. We would describe what was going on in the patient. Now there's going to be 12 different ways to describe what's going on in the patient. And look at some of these. Can you imagine a medical issue that was caused by, number 1, a problem with your in-laws? Probably on Thanksgiving, about halfway through dinner, you can. Okay? How about sucked into a jet engine? Or number 5, burned due to water skis on fire. Just picture that. Picture that. How that's going on, okay? Number 4, I got asked, how could somebody drown in a bucket of water? A baby could. A toddler. Doesn't take very much water, face down, okay? Or number 6, between my husband and I, we have 5 boys. The oldest is 20, the oldest is 30, the youngest is 21. We have had at least 2 of them have number 6 happen 2 separate times, and in each case, shockingly, it involved beer. I know! We were shocked as well. The one call that my husband got was, Dad, I didn't drink as much as they said I did. Yeah, that's why you're in the ER, pal. Because you didn't drink as much as they said you did.
What's number 7?
The number 7 is hair causing external constriction. Got your hair caught in something. One of my brothers is an EMT. Well, he's actually retired now, but he spent 21 years as a firefighter at EMT. He's going through an airport one time, and mother's got 2 kids. She's trying to handle the baby, and she's got like a 3 or 4-year-old, and the 3 or 4-year-old is bouncing all through. And the kid somehow got their arm and their hair caught. She had long hair. And my brother missed his flight because he was helping mother screaming, the kids screaming, and I mean, EMS in the airport got there pretty quick, but he's standing right there, so he was helping out. He missed his flight because of it, but that would be that kind of a case. Kid got her hair and her arm caught somehow in the machinery going through. So, ICD-10. This is about much more than money, and we just wrote a blog article on that too, so visit the website. It's got lots of different articles. What's going to happen is to make things compatible and so we can compare information. The Centers for Disease Control, the National Center for Health Statistics, the National Center for Injury Prevention is going to gather all this data and disseminate it, and we'll be able to make a difference. So let's look at how we can make a difference. Because under ICD-10, if we looked at the mechanism of injury, we always track the activity that occurred at the time of the event. So we would say the patient was swimming, and that's what would be put on the claim. The patient was swimming. Well, they're swimming and they're swimming. Makes a huge difference where you're swimming that something happened, doesn't it? If you're swimming in a pool, if you're swimming in the ocean, if you're swimming in ice, people in Norway do strange things with ice. Well, it's part of their lifestyle. You're swimming in an ocean that you were not anticipating a shark, as has happened in the Carolinas recently. You're walking off the dock into a lake and you don't realize the mud and the silt, and you get caught, and it's almost like quicksand. So that mechanism of injury, that becomes the where something happened. It's not just the swimming, it's the where something happened. And these examples of coding are really involved. Toxic effect of the venom of bees that was intentionally done. Somebody walked into beehives. Way down there, inadequate social skills, hunting rifle discharge. So, when you're documenting to get to ICD-10, you're always going to start with the compliance issue. And we talked about this. Dispatch. How were you dispatched? What were you dispatched for? And then, when you're on scene with the patient, chief complaint, HPI. What happened? Where did it happen? How did it happen? Past medical history, notes from bystanders, facility staff. Assess your patient. If you did an ALS assessment, document it. Somebody other than you will decide what to do with it. Don't borrow more trouble than you have, just document it. Your exam, your vital signs, your blood glucose, your pulse ox, all those things. And your treatment and transport. Any interventions, any unsuccessful attempts, as well as successful things. And now when we get to the emergency, the accident, I need to know exactly where it happened. Not just that this was an NVA, I need to know that this happened on the side of an overpass. I need to know that this happened on a suburban street. I need to know that this was in the middle of the city. How about assault? Well, what did the assault? Are we talking about a sexual assault? So this was someone who was sexually assaulted. So it's not only the body that was injured, but what happened that caused the injury. Bites. What did the biting and where was the bite? Was this a human bite, a critter bite? What happened? Burns. Was this a chemical issue? Was this a plant explosion? Was this a house fire? What happened? The where, the what, and the how. When we're talking about where, and you're going to a residence, I need to know, was this a mobile home? Was this an apartment? And once you get to the residence, did you find the patient in the bathroom, in the kitchen, in the bedroom? Was this a dorm? Was this a prison? How did the event occur? What is the HPI? And what part of the body? So if this is a finger, what finger is it? If it's an elbow, it is the right elbow. Rights and lefts, uppers and lowers. If you took a patient who fell, you used to say, oh, the patient fell 3 feet, the patient fell 6 feet. Nope, not anymore. Need to know the mechanism of injury. If this was stairs and steps, now I need to know, was it an escalator? Was it an incline? Was it something that involved ice and snow? Was it a ramp? All of this comes into play in the documentation. Non-emergencies. Why does the patient need an ambulance and an EMT? Are they in pain? How much pain? What is the pain scale? Are they paralyzed left or right? What's going on? Fall risk. Are they a danger to themselves or others? Bed sores. Oh, let me explain to you about bed sores in just a minute. Unable to regulate their own oxygen, had to remain immobile, or they were bed confined. You have 3 types of transports when you're doing non-emergencies. It's a discharge, it's dialysis, it's hospital to hospital. Remember, in the discharge, whatever put the patient in the hospital is not why they're in your ambulance. Need to know what is their condition today. Dialysis, the most amount of scrutiny, big, big, big microscope on this. So, if your patient had 2 BKA this morning, I guarantee their legs did not grow back this afternoon. But it needs to be documented there. And hospital to hospital, why are they leaving a warm and cozy building? What is it that is not available at the first place that they need at the second place? And guess what phrase does not work? Upgraded care. Upgraded care doesn't cut the mustard. What is the upgraded care? A neurosurgeon they need because they had CVA and something's going on there? Okay, good reason to leave one place and go to another, but upgraded care doesn't cut it. When you're looking at ICD-10 and you have a patient with contractures, need to know the whole story. Your patient might need special positioning, but is this contractures of the upper and lower extremities? Maybe this is just contractures of the lower extremities. Need the detail. And your patients on oxygen, remember, a lot of them are walking around or riding scooters. But this patient could sit stationary in a facility or outside the facility on a nice sunny day. However, he's got advanced Alzheimer's and he can't regulate his own oxygen. Or he's a fall risk or an escape risk. So look at the whole picture of what's going on. This is not a pretty picture. There's a lot of difference in stages of bed sores, stage 1 versus stage 3. But when you're looking at the documentation of bed sores as a reason for a patient being in ambulance, knowing where it's located is critical. What stage would be very helpful, but you are not going to unwrap bandages and find out the stage. But let me show you what a biller is going to face. So when they put in that a patient has a bed sore, these are the choices that they're going to have to fill out. They're going to need to know, is this a pressure also right lower back, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, or stage 4? How are you going to get that information? You're not. You're just not. Unless somebody at the facility tells you, if they tell you, write it down, but you're not going to get it. But what you will know is where it's at, because you're the one positioning the patient to deal with it. And so, that one in yellow, the pressure ulcer, the right lower back, unspecified stage, your billing department will be able to use that to create the claim. But they need to know where it's at, and you will know that because you will be moving the patient. Remember Ralphie, the movie Christmas Story? Ralphie wanted a BB gun for Christmas. And his mother said, no, you'll shoot your eye out. And his father, doing what dads often do, got him the BB gun. So what does he do? He runs outside on Christmas morning in his pajamas and his boots. It's Chicago, it's cold, it's snowing. He goes and he aims at a squirrel and the dang gun backfires in his eye. So, the where, the how, and the what is where, residence, backyard of residence. Where is also what part of the body? That's his left eye. And these would be all the choices just describing the eye injury. They also are going to have to describe where this happened when they code the claim. So this particular code is an unspecified injury, contusion of the eye contusion, eye trauma. They'll need to know it is the left eye. Remember that movie where the kids also were there before Christmas in the at recess, and they're all telling this one kid, put your tongue on the pole. The old telephone poles used to be covered with metal. And the kid says, no, we dare you, put your tongue on the pole. No, we double dare you, put your tongue on the pole. No, we double dog dare you, put your tongue on the pole. Oh, stupid idiot puts his tongue on the pole. Sure enough, fire department has to come out, and his tongue is injured. There is a code for that as well. So where? The where would be the schoolyard. The mechanism of injury would be tongue stuck to a telephone pole. And from there, the rest of the picture can be created. Just be specific. If it's an arm, no, it's the arm, the right arm. So if you have a farm and a crush injury, this is the location, the where is the farm, the mechanism of injury is the farm machinery, the right wrist and hand sustained a crush injury. There's your where, your how, and the what. At EMS Financial, we looked to see what was going on with all the codes, and we looked at just of those 68,000 codes, how many impacted ambulance. And there were 286 codes, different ways just to describe an abrasion. I know. There are 263 codes for things that could happen in a car. And it's either the car or the passenger, in injuries with a train, or a two-wheeled vehicle, or a pickup truck, or an SUV. The coma scale is changing. Now, up until now, You know what a GCS scale is, and it adds up to 15. That piece stays exactly the same as it always did. However, what a biller would do is if they saw a GCS of 12, they would put that the patient was altered mental status. Patient is not altered mental status. 12 might be their norm. It would be if they dropped down to 9 that there was something going on. But billing didn't have any other way. If they saw nothing else in the trip report but a GCS of 12, they would write altered mental status. What's happening now under ICD-10 is that the GCS codes are broken down. So 15 is one ICD-10, 13 to 14 is another, 9 to 12 is another. So you have a better way of describing what's going on with your patients that you see, without saying they're altered mental. They just have a GCS of 9 to 12. Things that bite people. We need to know not only where it happened, but who did the biting. So if your patient was bitten by an alligator, cat, cow, dog, a dolphin, a duck, a goose, a macaw, an orca, a pig, a raccoon, a rodent, or a squirrel, there's a code for everything. If you see orca bites going on around here, you might want to call the 6 o'clock news, because I am sure that is noteworthy. How about this? Can you figure out what the mechanism of injury is going to be here? Yeah. I think that is under the problem with in-laws code. Abrasion or friction burn of other multiple and unspecified sites. That's just one way of describing this injury. The rest is you're going to have to describe that it's a dirt road. You can see what body parts are going to be involved. And that this is that an ATV? All-terrain vehicle? Yeah. Okay. So you need to describe the vehicle, the where it happened, as well as the body parts. This one. What happened to this fella is there's some kind of flight delay, he falls asleep at the airport, and he doesn't realize that he falls and he drives his knee up into his hip. Falls just right to break his hip. And this is a fall while asleep at the airport. So the airport is the where, and the rest of the mechanism of injury is there. There are so many descriptions of overly amorous pets. So, the where and the how. Struck by birds. Accident 2 were involving an ice yacht. Person on the outside of a pickup truck or van injured in a collision with a 2- or 3-wheeled motor vehicle. Or how about this? Fisherman bit and dragged underwater by a sea lion. And that actually happened. EMS1.com said there have been like 5 really bizarre incidents so far this year with animals. We all heard about the scorpion on the plane that a couple months ago that was like all over the news and all over the internet. Well, this guy caught this humongous fish. He's standing there, he's taking a picture of it. The sea lion comes up, pulls him underneath, bangs him up all over the place. He gets bitten, he gets injured, 300-pound sea lion. There's a way, so the where, the how, and the what. The mechanism of injury. Fortunately, a nosebleed is still a nosebleed. But falls are a very common thing to happen. Falls of every kind imaginable, you want to be able to describe it. And folks, I know you're in Louisiana. In case you do not understand what this comes from my part of the country, that's called ice and snow. And people fall in it all the time. So you can see he's on a city street, he slips on the ice and snow. You can see what the mechanism of injury is. You can see where this is going to happen. And how about something as simple as nausea and vomiting? How many times do you get that call? Something as simple as nausea and vomiting. You would see an N&V documented. It needs a lot more detail. These are just the codes under nausea and vomiting. Under vomiting, there are all these subsets of codes. So without nausea, it's projectile vomiting. It's projectile vomiting of fecal matter. It's bilious vomiting. Need more description. Or, have you had any spaceship crashes here? I understand Texas is like that, yes. I do a lot of work in Texas. I understand that. There are ways to describe what's going on if there's a spaceship crash. So, we got to know, was this the occupant Was this the driver? Was this a collision? Was this a forced landing? Yep, so beware of spaceship crashes, because look at all the choices. This is the list of codes for spaceship crashes. And was this a forced landing of a spacecraft that injured the occupant? Or was it a crash that injured the occupant? Or was it an unspecified accident that injured the occupant? Different than the driver. 71 codes for pain. Palpitations and paraplegia now have a code. They didn't used to have a way to describe them. Patients pecked by a chicken or a turkey. I was in Georgia. They say that happens all the time. Pressure ulcers of all kinds. And vehicle accidents, all right. So this would have been a single, so this would have been a driver of a pickup truck overturned on a highway. There's your where, your how, and your what. School bus accident on a suburban street that injured the occupants, not the driver. Or a motorcycle that went off the highway into the field. So that's your mechanism of injury that you're describing, as well as what you find with the patient. And this does come from Texas recently. Texas had a lot of problems with rain recently, and there is a rescue. So there's a vehicle that went off the road into a creek. Into a creek. All right. Or how about this? This is a very common kind of call you get. History of present incident. It's Sunday. People go to church because they want to get to service. Now, they might have been a diabetic that had no breakfast, and they faint. You have syncope at church. Classic 911 call, or classic call to an event. Now, they might have had a heart issue, and they were having palpitations, but they're determined to go to service.
In Louisiana, that's called tachycardia.
Tachycardia? Okay. And what is tachycardia?
It's low.
Oh, okay. Now I understand it. Thank you very much. You get the Lord on. Okay. So that is what needs to be, that whole picture needs to be ICD-10. We're going to wrap up. I'm going to get you to forms. And just one other point. Remember, when you're doing hospital-to-hospital transports, this is not your worry. Who pays for this? It is your worry to document. And your worry to document is to hit the mark. Sometimes you're leaving a hospital, going to another hospital for a good reason. Maybe the CAT scan at this hospital is broken down. Maybe the patient needs a neurosurgeon that is available at another hospital. So you need to note the test or the procedure or what services that they're going to get at the receiving facility. Somebody other than you will decide, and Medicare does not pay for everything. You do not have to borrow the trouble of, oh my gosh, is this getting billed to Medicare? If you've been objective and you do quality documentation, then that decision can be made. Some bills get paid by facilities. Some bills get paid by Medicare. Some bills get paid by commercial insurance. Some bills get paid by patients. And when it's not emergency, we've talked about emergency so that you don't end up losing any legitimate revenue. But in non-emergency, since there's so much scrutiny, no shortcuts, every trip, every time. Be thorough, document what's shared with you by others. A dialysis, big one, too much. So why does the patient need an ambulance today, this morning? Why do they need it this afternoon? Your forms are threefold: your physician certification, your advanced beneficiary notice of non-coverage, and your beneficiary signature. PCS forms are needed for non-emergencies. Sometimes call intake will get them, sometimes crews pick them up. They are never needed in an emergency, but they are needed for every non-emergency, and they can be signed by a lot of people, doctors, nurses. An LPN cannot sign it, a discharge planner can. A repetitive patient is a dialysis patient. Those have to be signed by a doctor, and they have to be in hand in advance. The other thing is, and a lot of services do not use this, it's called an advanced beneficiary notice. It is an official form from CMS, and it lets people know that things aren't covered. So anything that's not covered, you do not have to tell the patient. If it's not covered, it's statutorily excluded from coverage, you do not have to tell the patient. But this form can make life a little easier if you have a patient that wants to go extra mileage in a non-emergency situation. Medicare doesn't pay for transports to a doctor's office. They don't pay for service that's not medically necessary. They don't pay for transports for patient convenience or family or doctor convenience. And you could use this form to alert the patient. They don't pay for mileage beyond the closest appropriate facility. We've already talked about the closest appropriate facilities. They also don't pay for higher level service. Maybe your patient wants paramedics. The family wants paramedics. They won't pay for air transport when ground transport would do. And they don't pay for stretcher or wheelchair vans. So all this form does is give them options. And these options show them, hey, I want this service, I want you to bill Medicare, and then I'll pay for it. Or I want you to bill Medicare, see if they'll deny it or not. Or I just am agreeing to the service, but you're letting them know. Again, this is a choice. This is not a have-to situation. This is a choice. If something is excluded from coverage by Medicare, you don't have to get a form signed. But if you're doing a lot of trips and people are getting fussy about it, it can help explain it to them. The last thing that you absolutely do need is a beneficiary signature. And what Medicare says is, look, the benefits belong to the patient. And in order for the patient to give them to you, they have to assign them to you. And that is done through a beneficiary signature form. So it is always easiest if you can get the patient's signature. You are done, nothing else to worry about. You get the patient's signature, they are assigning benefits to you, the claim can be billed, you're out there. If a patient is unable to sign, then you have other options. But if the patient refuses to sign, you can't get it signed by anybody else. You're done. It's now a billing problem. Billing can send them a bill and can send them a signature form. My dad would be one of those people who would refuse because he wanted to read everything. And if Dad fell down and hit his head, it's not the time to read things, Dad. So he would refuse to sign, and later he would get a bill. Crew members should not sign on behalf of the patient. Patient refuses, you're done. If the patient is unable to sign, you have options. And the options are, if the patient can sign, great. If the patient is unable to sign, their representative can sign. Who is their representative? Family, somebody at a facility, a neighbor. My neighbor, my husband and I look out for her, she's older. We hadn't seen her in a few days, and her car was there, and we noticed she hadn't been out tending her fruits and vegetables and flowers, so we knocked on the door, we got no answer, we used the key, when she'd fallen and broken her head. Poor soul had been there for a couple of days, so thank heavens we went in. Well, I signed for her. I'm not taking on any financial responsibility. I'm just basically supporting that EMS showed up, and this is her, and I signed. If you are at a facility, the facility can sign. They're not taking on any financial responsibility either. The trouble is, you walk in the door, place has got people all over it. You go to walk out the door, ghost town. Or they found religion in a different way because now they're embracing policy and procedure and saying, oh, well, I can't sign anything. Our policies don't let us, or HIPAA doesn't let us, or any other reason that they say they won't sign. Fine. If they are unwilling or unavailable to sign, then your last stop is the receiving facility. But here you have to do a lot of work. And the lot of work is that you have to write why the patient couldn't sign, you have to write your name, you have to write the name of the receiving facility, the time, you have to get a signature from the receiving facility. That's a whole lot of work, but there's options. There's options there, okay? So those are your signature things. I told you in the beginning, black and white. If it's in black and white, you can read it, you can see it, have a comfort level with it. Go to cms.gov. cms.gov, put the word ambulance in the search engine at cms.gov. It gives you a whole page that will link you to every kind of rule and regulation imaginable, what different people get paid for service in different parts of the country. Everything is right there. There are two manuals on CMS that most people refer to. The Chapter 10 is the Benefits Policy Manual. It shows you things like benefits and what is coverage and medical necessity. And it talks about signature requirements, and it talks about the PCS and all those other things. Or the Claims Processing Manual also goes into all those topics. So hopefully I have not driven you to drink. All right? But I want to remind you, We do a lot of education. We always post about it on our Facebook page first. So we do, my two favorite four-letter words are free and sale. So I do freebies. There's a lot of, we blog and we put things up, a lot of articles that are available on the website. Cards are here if you want them. If you need any questions afterwards about something that I talked about, don't hesitate to reach out.